What has been your favorite thing that you have researched so far for your books?
For me, it is just weird magic and lore and folklore and stuff. So I don't want to. Well, I'm sure everyone wants to have a unique magic system, but I wanted to have one that felt like it could be real. Um, so I'm going through a couple of like urban fantasy series at the moment, and maybe there's bits of that in there. Reading a book about black magic, there's bits of that in there. I'm reading books about British folklore. There's even a little bit of that in there, and it feels it's still working out some kinks, I think, but it feels interesting and it feels believable, as far as I can tell. Fingers crossed.
I'm sure it will. And I think based on some of the stuff you've been reading that I know about anyway, it's definitely going to make for a really interesting, fun magic system along with the characters that you've come up with as well.
Hopefully. I think so. But, I've been wrong before.
That's why you've got me.
What has been your favourite thing to research?
Mine, to nobody's surprise, has been ancient Egypt. Not
Okay.
just the mummies, not just the mummies, although that's how I got into it. I will admit that. I started with the mummies, and that was the main thing I needed to research for Afterlife Calls. But then, just in general, researching ancient Egypt and all the stuff I've learned about like what they ate and what they believed, and the fact that actually it was quite a feminist society compared to other societies at the time, and the weird stories about like I can't say it, Hatshepsut. I think I said that right. And how she dressed as a man because she wanted to be in charge and people just accepted that she dressed as a man sometimes and sometimes she was a woman. They didn't care. She was in charge. And so there's just some really cool stories about it, but also the fact that there are still a lot of gaps that we don't know that really fascinates me for some reason. I don't know why, but it does.
I guess from my historian point of view, I would say, I'll promise to never say that again as well.
You do have a degree in history. You're sort of allowed to say you just don't use that degree very much.
I should. The things we don't write down, like even now, the things we don't write down are the things that are so normal it doesn't seem worth writing down. So if there's something about history that we don't know, perhaps it seemed so boring to them that they didn't note it down. But in actual fact, to us, it would seem so much more interesting than they realized.
Yeah, like mummification. There's only one or two things that actually talk you through the process of mummification. Yet loads and loads of rich people were mummified. And a lot of people don't realize that that was only for the elite, the everyday people. Most of them weren't mummified, but they did have the most insane wigs made that they were buried in. And because those wigs were protected with beeswax and something else, their hair is perfectly intact thousands of years later with like really intricate braids and plaits and all sorts just because of this like essentially hair wax that they put on.
That's pretty cool. I imagine though, even when they were doing it, they weren't picturing us a few thousand years later admiring it though, and that amuses me. That kind of perspective shift just amuses me sometimes.
Yeah, it does mean like they definitely weren't because the idea was that they survive in the afterlife and they've got these things to help them and protect them and stuff. And in a way, they have survived in the afterlife because a part of them is still here 4,000 years later, just not necessarily in the way that they necessarily envisaged.
It depends how you classify afterlife, then I guess. But
Precisely.
that might be a slightly too big a topic for this episode.
Yeah, I think it might be, and also too philosophical for the time of night we're recording this.
Probably also a good shout.
One of my favorite places to research ancient Egypt was a site called Wondrium, which I am a massive fan of, and we are also affiliates of. Wondrium is where I learned about ancient Egypt. It's where I started and kind of stopped studying hieroglyphs, but I stopped studying hieroglyphs because I switched to studying nutrition and Spanish instead, and they felt slightly more useful in the modern world than hieroglyphs, considering there's like three hieroglyphs in 17 of my books so far that nutrition just felt a bit more beneficial.
I disagree, but whatever floats your boat.
If you would like to check out Wondrium and learn about everything from ancient Egypt to drawing, I don't know why I'm fiddling with this pencil. If you're watching on YouTube, it's yeah. Anyway, I'm like a small child tonight, and just like can't sit still, or if you want to learn about nutrition or learn a new language or a form of art, or just get your teeth into a documentary for an hour, definitely check out Wondrium. You can get a 14-day free trial with our link and save 25% off a monthly plan or 35% off your yearly plan. To find out more, visit writerscookbook.com/Wondrium, and that's WONDRIUM. writerscookbook.com/Wondrium. And we'll put the link in the notes below as well, just in case.